So, remember way back when I did a video of 1917 reviewing it? Well, a lot has happened since then, and I had time to think and I watched it again. Now, remember way back when I did a top 10 greatest war movies? Well, that's good. We're both on the same page. Well, a lot of people have got to talking, and they said some things. They said that 1917 is probably the new best war movie, and how it might even topple Saving Private Ryan as king of all war films. And I thought, no way. Mind you, I've already gone on record saying Full Metal Jacket is the greatest military movie, but most people, most movie buffs, most history buffs, veterans, etc. have said Saving Private Ryan's the best. And a lot more people are saying that 1917 is the new contender for the title. So, I'm going to throw in my 2 cents. Now, I know these movies aren't of the same war, so it might be weird to compare them, but they are very similar in the fact that they're war movies with their characters going on quests across the war to achieve a specific objective. This is 1917 vs. Saving Private Ryan. Round 1. Plot. In Saving Private Ryan, it's 1944 during Operation Overlord. The Allies conduct an amphibious assault on Normandy Beach in France. Army intelligence gets reports that 3 out of 4 brothers in the Ryan family died in battle, and the remaining brother James is a paratrooper who missed his drop site and is somewhere deep behind enemy lines, probably with no contact with the rest of his unit. An 8-man team is sent to go find him and return him home, in accordance with the sole survivor policy. 1917 takes place on the western front of World War I, and the Imperial German Army has conducted a massive tactical withdrawal to the heavily fortified Hindenburg Line. They've cut the Allies' phone lines, ruining communication, and 2 soldiers are assigned by the general to travel miles to reach the Devonshire Regiment to call off an attack to save the lives of 1,600 men. Okay, so I've compared the plots many times to try to be as fair as I can, but there's just one thing that puts a massive hole on 1917's ability to win this challenge, and that's the fact that the 1917 soldiers don't have to travel behind enemy lines. What makes Saving Private Ryan a lot better is that our heroes are tasked with going behind enemy lines, and are told from the very beginning that they are going to run into the Germans. In 1917, that's not really the case. The Germans abandon the terrain, so the journey the 2 Englishmen have to make isn't through hostile territory. They're told they might run into the Germans, but they're not traveling through or behind German-held ground. That was the thing that kind of bothered me the most about 1917. So, winner, Saving Private Ryan. Round 2, characters. The characters of Saving Private Ryan are a mystery to the audience. In fact, a big part of the movie is how none of the soldiers under the command of Captain Miller know anything about him or his background, and whoever gets him to tell his personality and personal history gets a prize. The other characters' past is also kind of a mystery, and they slowly reveal things about their civilian life when it's appropriate. There are other things you can pick up, but it's small details, like Ryben is from New York because his field jacket says New York on it. He also revealed how he worked in a store with his family before the war. Captain Miller, in order to defuse the situation, said that he was a school teacher and happily married.
I'm a school teacher. I teach English composition. This little town called Adley, Pennsylvania. The last 11 years, I've been at Thomas Alva Edison High School.
And Mellish, in order to taunt German POWs, says he's a Jew. There are other minor things, but the personality traits of the soldiers are not at all hidden. Miller is tough and has a hard shell on the outside, but on the inside, he cares for his men, and he's a scared and sad man who just wants to go home. Sergeant Horvath is a very loyal and dedicated soldier, and has served with the captain since North Africa. Upham is a book-smart, bilingual soldier, but has no confidence and isn't reliable in battle because he's never been combat tested before the mission. And Jackson is super religious and says a prayer while fighting in battle. He's also an amazing shot with a rifle. There's a lot more, but those are the main ones. Our 2 main characters of 1917 are Blake and Schofield. Schofield is an experienced soldier and a veteran who fought at the Battle of the Somme, which is the most infamous battle on the Western Front. He's very cautious and distrustful of Army intelligence and command, rightfully so. I'll touch back on that later. He's also determined and passionate, who never gives up. Blake is a more cheerful and comedic soldier. He always tells funny stories, and is a cheerful, patriotic man. One could argue he isn't experienced on the battlefield and maybe disillusioned, but I could be digging too deep in saying that. The last character of value is Colonel Mackenzie, who loves to fight, and is one of those officers you need to watch out for. So the thing about 1917 is, you don't really see character growth, or any real development, because there's not enough to track. In Saving Private Ryan, the men grow and they change, and their personalities are on full display. For example, Upham goes from being a wimp and a pushover to being a confident man who finally understands what it means to be a soldier. The men assigned to the mission who are angry at trying to save Private Ryan end up liking him after all. And Miller finally comes to terms with death and makes the ultimate sacrifice. So I think the winner is Saving Private Ryan. Winner, Saving Private Ryan. Round 3. Performances. So Saving Private Ryan has 3 huge A-list actors and the star power of great performers, Tom Hanks, Vin Diesel, and Matt Damon. They acted phenomenally, and Tom Hanks got an Academy Award nomination, which he should have won. Not only do the actors pull off the Brothers of War look, but they're amazing at showing fear, sorrow, and bravery during battle. In 1917, Dean Charles Chapman did an average job leading up to his death scene, but the part where he died, that was the best part of his performance. He really did seem like he was dying, and his facial expressions matched with his emotions and his words definitely made you believe him. And George McKay was really good at Schofield. He knocked it out of the park and should have been nominated for an Oscar. His subtle deliverances and his emotional consistency were not only believable, but moving. This one scene totally captures how it feels to be a soldier faced with not returning home to their loved ones.
I hated going home. I hated it. When I knew I couldn't stay. When I knew I had to leave, and they might never see me.
George was really convincing as a Western Front veteran, but I'm sorry to say that there's no way those two actors could compare with Tom Hanks' geniusness in front of the camera. Winner, Saving Private Ryan. Round 4, musical score. John Williams, aka the Emperor of Movie Music, scored the music for Saving Private Ryan and was nominated for another Oscar. It was one of those musical scores that slowly grew more and more as the movie progressed, and at times it really helped set the mood for the scenes to help you feel the emotions our heroes went through. Thomas Newman crafted the music for 1917, and it was really intellectually stimulating. It fit really amazing into some scenes, but I don't think the best of its music was played enough. It's kind of sad. So winner, Saving Private Ryan. Round 5, sounds and special effects. The sound of both movies were really great. The audio was crystal clear and pitch perfect. Also, both movies used really realistic prosthetics and makeups to show combat wounds and trauma. The scene in No Man's Land where Blake and Schofield crawl across dead bodies looked gruesomely real. Unfortunately, the sound wasn't displayed and demonstrated a lot, or in huge quantities like Saving Private Ryan. And I've heard MG-42s being fired for real, and Steven Spielberg's sound for the MGs were damn near identical, to the point of minor differences. The gunfire was as close as it gets to real firearms, and the makeup practical effects used to show battle wounds were so realistic. Some of the actors even got skeeved out on set. Also, the practical makeup effects and battle wounds of 1917 were more decomposing bodies than live wounded casualties like Saving Private Ryan. But the explosion effects, the fire, incredible work from Saving Private Ryan. So, winner, Saving Private Ryan. Round 6, direction. I think both movies did an amazing job with the direction. The cinematography was incredible. 1917 might be revolutionary by having the film being edited to give the illusion of one continuous shot. And it was a visually beautiful movie. The picture was 100% clear. In fact, when I was watching the movie, I thought to myself, the phrase picture perfect was invented because of high definition quality like this movie. It was really impressive. It showed time progression in a realistic way, showing how nothing in the journey was unimportant and what it would have been like in real life. It's almost like the God's eye view of the characters. That's an awesome approach to making a movie. In Saving Private Ryan, Spielberg had a different approach. His method was to give you the eyewitness experience of war. His handheld camera angles and at times tunnel vision and first-person point-of-view shots were amazing and not only brought you into the action, it made you part of it. The color shades of the picture set the mood for the scenes to come and it was breathtaking. So who did it better? Honestly, I'm going to surprise myself and say 1917 because the techniques used weren't anything new, but having the time progress in a realistic way in almost one continuous shot was really revolutionary. So, winner, 1917. Round 7, emotional impact. To make this quick, Saving Private Ryan is a roller coaster of emotions. You go from feeling adrenaline and thrilled during the battles, to sad and depressed during the death scenes and personal struggles, to being totally inspired and wanting to be a soldier. I saw a meme once that said one does simply not watch Saving Private Ryan and not want to enlist afterwards, and that's damn true. 1917 gives you the emotional feeling of suspense and tension, with minor scenes of sorrow and the will to continue in hard times. As good as those were, I don't think it invokes the same emotional response from the audience that Saving Private Ryan does. Winner, Saving Private Ryan. Round 8, battles. This might seem like a no-brainer on what movie has the better battle sequences, but let's take a look at which combat scenes were better. Saving Private Ryan's battle scenes have been described by veterans as painfully accurate and disturbingly real. Some Omaha Beach veterans even said it felt like going back in time and watching that scene. The sound effects, the directing, the acting really throws the audience into chaos. 1917 arguably has 4 combat sequences, but the 2 main ones are the sniper duel and the attack at the climax. The other 2 that you can argue is the dogfight we witness in the distance and when Schofield is being chased through the ruined town by the occupying German soldiers. But here's the thing. Those combat scenes, and I kind of use that term loosely here, were very limited, short, and didn't deliver. Let me explain. The entire movie was built around the suspense that our heroes might run into the enemy, and there was a huge buildup of tension only to be let down, because we as the audience invest so much attention, emotional expectations, only to have none of it pay off. And what I mean is, we start the mission following the soldiers and keep thinking they might run into a skirmish here or there. And my exact thoughts were, I can't wait to see the first gunshot being fired, hoping the buildup would create a thrill even before it happened. But nope, it was disappointing because the first glimpse of action we see was seen very, very far away in the distance during the aerial battle. So I thought, all that buildup for that, and then when the sniper scene happened, I was already expecting it, and it wasn't an exciting sequence. It didn't feel like the cat and mouse duel between a sniper and his prey. It was more or less a couple shots being traded back and forth. The scene where Schofield was being chased through the burning town was actually really exciting because he lost his rifle, he was vulnerable, and he couldn't defend himself. And you thought, what's he gonna do now? The music made it a lot more fun to watch, so I'll give 1917 that. But when we finally reached the battle, which is more or less what we've been waiting for the entire movie, that too was a major letdown. Why is that, you might be asking, which I guarantee none of you are. Well, for one, we know that the whole movie revolves around trying to stop this impending attack, so we know it's coming regardless of whether or not Schofield makes it there in time. It's gonna happen. So when it does, we don't even really get to see it. Don't get me wrong, the shot of Schofield triumphantly running, beating the odds, dashing across no man's land where the soldiers fall around him, charging into battle, accompanied by the amazing score, that was a beautiful shot. But when he reaches the colonel's dugout, we don't get to see any of the battle, we don't get to see any bit of the combat, and this one really bothered me, but we don't even hear any small arms fired, no machine guns, no rifles, just the artillery and the musical score, which drowns out the background noise. So, all that tension, all that buildup, all that emotional suspense we've invested was completely thrown out by a very anticlimactic finale. The climax didn't deliver enough. Or maybe it'd be more appropriate to say so much expectations were set with the buildup that it didn't meet what we expected. And I know a lot of people are going to say that I'm missing the point of the movie entirely, but no, I don't think so. I know war movies aren't just about the actions and the battle scenes, and I wasn't implying that at all. I just don't think that it was done properly in 1917. But let's take a look at Saving Private Ryan. The opening scene, which was a spectacular fight, was important to the story because not only does it introduce the characters, but it sets the stage to let you know what kind of movie this is and how it's going to be a brutal depiction of D-Day. So if you can't handle it or you get disturbed, that was your warning. And what makes it work in Saving Private Ryan is our heroes have to go behind enemy lines for their mission. So it's not a question of if they run into the Germans, it's a matter of they are definitely going to run into them. Now, I'll admit, in the middle of the movie, it wasn't as battle-heavy and as epic as the opening, and to some degree, certain parts were boring. However, the filmmakers realized that just accomplishing their mission wasn't enough to satisfy the viewers. They had to have an ending battle. Was it relevant to the plot? No, not really, but the people were expecting a climax even greater than the opening scene, which basically set the standard for it. So they had to have a battle, and it worked. It paid off. It was incredible. The battle in Rommel. I personally think it was better than the opening scene. They were fun, exciting, and insane. 1917 didn't have that effect. In their mission, they weren't told to go behind enemy lines, so them encountering the enemy was a possibility, not a guarantee. And that was disappointing. This might sound harsh to say, but 1917 might as well have been an interactive tour through the abandoned battlefields. So, winner, Saving Private Ryan. Round 9, historical accuracy. To start this round, I'm going to say that I was very impressed and satisfied with the respect and historical accuracy that went into making these films. However, like most historical fiction, they did take, to an extent, some creative liberties. Saving Private Ryan wasn't inaccurate, but it wasn't portraying a real event after the Omaha beach landing. There was no town of Rommel. There wasn't any James Ryan, etc., etc. It was, however, inspired by the true story of the Nyland brothers and the real U.S. Army policy called the Sole Survivor Act, which states that the remaining brother in a family has to be sent home if all of his other siblings are KIA. I happen to think the true story is more interesting, but that's another topic. And to sum up, I have my doubts that Chief of Staff for America's Army would send a small team to retrieve someone who's possibly KIA on a hunch. It's best summed up by,
You want to explain the math of this to me? I mean, where's the sense of risking the lives of the 8 of us to save one guy?
Now, 1917's historical inaccuracies are so minor that it would be nitpicking if I were to call them out, but that's kind of why we're here. So, the first thing that jumped out to me was how the Army was so concerned about losing a little over 1,000 men, when in fact, battles at the time resulted in much more casualties, and I know that 1,600 men is a lot, but it doesn't seem big enough for a general of the time to be concerned about it since they were so used to sending tens of thousands to die every day. For example, the Battle of the Somme on its very first day, just about 20,000 deaths for the British Army. However, that's trivial because the amount really doesn't matter to the story. It's just something to get the plot going. The second inaccuracy was how there were minority soldiers integrated with the British ones. That just seemed like typical Hollywood trying to fill up its diversity quotas. Yes, it's true that Britain had colonial troops, but they'd be seen on foreign fronts like Africa or fighting against the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East. But black soldiers were definitely not in the Devonshire Regiment. Black Englishmen were put into the British West Indies Regiment, but those were so small and minor that it doesn't detract from all the other achievements accomplished by this film. Missions like what we see were actually conducted all the time because phone communications were easily compromised, and this movie was inspired by true stories that were told to the director by his First World War veteran grandpa. Also, in the year 1917, the German army really did conduct a strategic withdrawal and implemented a scorched earth policy in their retreat by killing livestock and ruining crops as seen in the movie.
I mean, who machine guns cows?
Ones with extra bullets.
Bastards.
Clever. They know if they don't shoot the cow, we'll eat it.
Also, towns were left in ruin as seen in the film. And lastly, the Germans really did leave booby traps in their abandoned positions to kill and slow down the Allied advance, not to mention they'd strategically leave snipers in specific areas. All of what I just mentioned was seen in the movie, and as a little bonus, someone made a mention that it was Friday, and the movie takes place on April 6th of 1917, and that day really was a Friday. So, winner, 1917. Round 10, portrayal of their time periods. These two films take place in different wars and did a really good job of portraying them. Saving Private Ryan through its gritty and toughness, and 1917 by showing the nasty, muddy reality of the trenches. So I'm going to say 1917 did a much better job of portraying World War I than Saving Private Ryan did of World War II. To a World War I fanatic like me, I was smiling in the theater. The claustrophobic, cramped, and muddy conditions of the trenches were perfectly shown, and the no man's land sequence was as good as real, because bodies would be left and rotten in the nasty mud, and the bombardments turned the terrain into a wasteland. The German trenches were shown correctly as they were much better engineered and designed than the British ones, and the smaller hidden details were damn near perfect. The trench lingo used was real, like up trench, down trench, over the top, dugout, parapet, and more. The trenches were really marked with signs and directions like street signs. And remember earlier how I said Schofield was distrustful of Army intelligence when they said the Germans were gone? His reaction was perfect and everything appropriately expected by a Battle of the Somme vet like himself, because at the Somme the artillery bombardment lasted a week, so the high command said all the Germans were killed, so they'd meet minimal resistance. Assuming there'd be minimal resistance, the soldiers walked across no man's land, and that resulted in almost 60,000 casualties on the first day. So when Schofield said,
Look, the last time I was told the Germans were gone, it didn't end well. You don't know, Blake, you weren't there.
That was brilliant. And lastly, to sum up, I just want to mention something really cool. And I'm not even sure if the filmmakers realized they did this, but when Schofield got into a fight with the German soldier, his friend kept calling him by the name, trying to find him. And his name was Baumer, which is the name of perhaps the most famous bit of World War I fiction's protagonist. Paul Baumer from All Quiet on the Western Front. That's pretty cool. So, winner, 1917. So, who's the overall better movie? Even though I've always stated that those rounds don't really mean much in the grand scheme of things, I think it's clear what I like better. So, our victor is Steven Spielberg's masterwork, Saving Private Ryan. Everything from its amazing set pieces, art direction, cinematography, and practical effects, Saving Private Ryan had this victory locked down. Even though I don't agree with the statement that it's the best war movie, I 100% respect why many say it is, because the level of effort that went into making it was on full display. The props, the costumes, it was all so convincing. The battles were epic. Now let's swing back to 1917 for a minute. I know I sounded a lot harsh when I was reviewing it, and some might be scratching their heads saying, but you made a review about it praising it. I thought you liked this movie. And yes, I do. I really like this movie. It's an amazing film. But I liked it up to a point, because from the opening scene to when Schofield runs into the French woman, it kind of just dragged on and I thought it should wrap up. It's a great movie, but it's a little slow. But in the end, it in no way stacks up to Saving Private Ryan. As good as it is, well guys, that about sums it up. Which movie did you like better? Comment below to let me know. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up and drop a subscribe. If you have any suggestions on what movie I should do next, comment that too. And join me next time as I give my take on the science fiction genre when I pitch Jurassic Park vs. the Terminator. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next Unpopular Opinion.